guys, welcome back to A3's video series Safe and Secure. My name is Alexis.
Hey, and I'm Kevin.
Kevin, do you see my background? I'm on virtual vacation right now.
Are you on virtual vacation or are you there? It looks like you're legitimately in the Keys or maybe Bermuda.
I'm actually in the Keys. I'm actually really not in the Keys, but it looks like I got a fake Mai Tai over here. Enjoying, the breeze and the water, because we can't go anywhere right now. So I'm on virtual vacation right now.
I love it. I wish I was on virtual or vacation or could even spell vacation at this moment.
Exactly. So this week you spoke to Mike Dorn at Safe Havens International. He's written a lot of books involved with like school safety and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, Mike is definitely a pioneer in school safety and security. He ran a school district for a while as the chief of police. He took over the state level in Georgia on school security and safety, and started Safe Havens International, really getting the word out, helping schools, doing school assessments. He is definitely a huge mentor to me. Actually, mentor's probably not even a good enough word.
Wow.
He's probably more around the superhero category. But yeah, huge fan of Mike and what his organization is doing for schools.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for this video. I say that every week, but I learn something new every single week. So without further ado, here is Safe and Secure with Mike Dorn.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us for Safe and Secure. I've got the pleasure of talking with Mike Dorn. Before we get into Mike's background and resume, Mike has a question for everyone.
Yes, I'd like to ask a thought-provoking question that we'll come back to in a few minutes to kind of give you an idea where we're going today. So what I ask is, what have you done in your organization to test for alignment between what your policies, procedures, plans, training programs say and what your people are most likely to do in the field, whether they're going to follow your prevention policies as they should, or whether they will react in an emergency as you think they will. And this gets into things like hardware and equipment and technologies and communication systems as well. So we're going to come back and talk about how that can be done. But in the meantime, I'd like you to think about how adequately you've made those types of evaluations and to see whether what you think you have in place matches the reality of what people are likely to do in the field. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, no, Mike, that's definitely a thought-provoking question. And I'm sitting here from, previous K-12 director position thinking to myself, where would Mike come up with such a thing? Because people are not thinking about those kind of tests and things. So could you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and your background that even got you to thinking in that manner?
So I've been in the field for about 40 years, and the driving force for that were things that happened to me as a child. I was raped by two teenage boys when I was in the second grade, not at school, but in my neighborhood. Family moved around a lot. I got bullied because I I have a disability, a learning disability. We moved from the north to the south, had a northern accent. So I had a fairly rough childhood, and we moved to a pretty rough community down here in Georgia. I was shot at with a semi-automatic rifle when I was 15. I was attacked with a box cutter in my high school. I was robbed multiple times at knife point at the middle school I attended. So I experienced quite a bit of that type of violence. By good fortune, I actually was arrested. I was truant from school because I was afraid to go back after a catastrophic event one day. And I entered a juvenile court diversion program run by the Macon Police Department. And that led me to become a police officer when I was only 18. So fast forward, I had a career. I was a school district police chief. Before that, I was a university police officer. Worked at state government level. But a group of us decided to found a nonprofit school safety center called Safe Havens International, which has now grown to be the largest school safety center in the world. We have 62 analysts, worked in 24 countries. And about all we do is K-12. We do a variety of things. We do training, conference keynotes, write books, and web courses, things like that, do consulting. The bulk of what we do, though, are what we call school safety, security, climate, culture, and emergency preparedness assessments. We've now assessed over 8,300 K-12 schools worldwide, most in the U.S. We also do a lot of post-incident work. of varying types. So expert witness work being brought in by school districts after they have some type of tragedy, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, were selected to do their assessment after the shooting for Broward County schools. I've worked 20 K-12 active shooter or targeted school shooting cases. Those are all basically planned shootings in U.S., Canadian, and Mexican schools. I've worked about 300 other catastrophic events, tornado strikes, terrorist attacks, bus crashes, bombings, different type situations. And, you know, our analysts, between the assessment work we do and the post-incident work we do, you get to see kind of a different picture. And when you start seeing people on video who you know have been through a particular training program or have a particular type of technology available to them, things don't go at all as planned. It really gets your attention. And I guess about 10 years ago, based on actually one of our North Carolina clients suggested it, we started filming school crisis scenario videos, very short, 40-second, 1 minute, probably the most, depictions of different types of events. And we also have done a lot of audio scenarios, which anybody, by the way, can record just on a regular computer. So we have about 200 what we call all hazards crisis scenarios that are all based in school setting: medical emergencies, acts of violence, hostage situation, active assailant, fire, tornado, just almost anything that we've actually seen either in a pattern or in some of those more catastrophic but rare events. And we almost by accident, working with a district where they spent $1 million to hire a consulting firm to write their emergency plans for them and put them on a computer. They hired us because they just paid $1 million in a lawsuit where a principal just absolutely locked up, didn't take any action, and a young man died. And they were sued. They quickly settled, and they were trying to figure out how somebody with 16 hours of recent training on the very emergency that he had would do so poorly, and then his staff just stand there and not take action while this young man died. And one of the things that we found out is they had the computer-based emergency plans. They were all on computer, no paper copies, and they were voluminous. They were really big. And I was trying to explain to them that I just didn't think that concept was viable. And I'm trying to remember why we even did it, but I took the training scenarios we developed for Buncombe County schools up in North Carolina, and I ran those with principals in real time. They didn't know what scenario that I would give them, but I ran scenarios, and I was absolutely astounded at the responses. One of the scenarios was an angry woman pulling a large knife in the office and threatening to kill office staff. And 3 of the 5 principals, and this is a big district that's had a number of stabbings and shootings, a big urban district in a high crime area. 3 of the 5 principals said they would ask the woman to come into their office and ask them to give her the knife, and didn't call their school resource officer, didn't order a lockdown, didn't do anything that you would expect. And that really jumped out at me. So fast forward now, we've been doing this for about 10 years. And I will tell you that we've never done an assessment where our clients weren't shocked at some of the things that have come up when we run those various types of scenarios. Is that making sense so far?
No, absolutely. I've said this for years, and I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir with you. Our school administrators, they are some of the smartest people in the world. They've got master's degrees. They've got their doctorate degrees. They've all have at least had their bachelor degree, right? Nowhere in their bachelor degree program, master's, or higher ed, do they even receive a 1 3-hour course. Most of them never even received an hour of one course on anything to do with security and emergency management. But yet we put them in the field, we put them in a building, we make them a superintendent, and they don't have the tools. So even them, I give them kudos, right, for having a plan, right? Because there's plenty that don't have plans or don't know where the best practices are to get a plan to even write. But then that's a whole nother world. Now it's like, all right, great, you have a plan. How do you know that the kindergarten teacher actually knows what to do? How are you going to know what to do under stress? And your scenarios, I think, as far as a stressful situation that's not going to create PTSD symptoms,
right?
They're spot on testing that plan. I can tell everybody out there on a personal level, in one of my last districts, I used your scenarios to test 3 of my schools so that I could address gaps in my training and where I needed to focus more on. And I highly recommend anyone and everyone to get out there and check into that, because you will be surprised. No matter how great your training system is, no matter how many hours you think you've got out there, you're going to identify gaps and holes in your plan through running through those scenarios. So those are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you have an extensive background in law enforcement, campus law enforcement, emergency management with school districts, and you've been in key positions with, I know, at least two, good-sized districts with a lot of responsibility. And, from our conversations before, you're very sensitive. Unfortunately, not everybody is, but you're very sensitive. I mean, you've done a great job of being able to take that experience from the public safety side, work in a school system, and understand that these are not Navy SEALs typically. They're not cops, they're not firefighters or educators. And we shouldn't expect them to know what to do any more than you and I would have been expected to know what we did before we went to the police academy and so forth. And,
absolutely,
the trick is, you alluded to this earlier, and I'll say it a little differently, but, packaging the information in a way that school folks can understand it and apply it. And one of the reasons fidelity testing is so important is it's so easy to create accidentally what we call training scars. And we're seeing this most of all with the active shooter training that's become so popular. There's run, hide, fight, which used to be, but no longer is, recommended by the U.S. Department of Education, which has failed catastrophically in one of the worst shootings in our country's history. It's failed repeatedly in our scenarios. The fail rate, one of the things we do, we run 6 scenarios with each employee, 2 employees per school. We rotate different all-hazard scenarios, different types of personnel. We want to know what the custodians know how to do, the administrators, front office staff, teachers, bus drivers, and so forth. And we show a 3-minute control video. We want to screen for trauma. We don't want to run scenarios with somebody who's experienced a catastrophic event. We want them to understand we're not really testing them. We're testing their organization, how well they've been prepared to handle these things. And they do not know the scenarios in advance. And then we score them and consistently run, hide, fight in every one of the commercial option-based or multi-option active shooter training programs that our clients use. We're just testing whatever they have. People trained in those approaches consistently, pretty much almost always, perform worse than people with no training whatsoever. And in addition to missing a lot of action steps, they are very prone to immediately go to whatever they call the fight option, if you will, when it makes no sense to do so. Now, we, by the way, had 12 school employees and 1 student killed doing that in real life, moving to try to confront somebody with a gun when it was a very bad idea to do it and not the dire situation. And the point there is we can tell people 25 times only as a last resort, but you and I were taught how to discern the difference between something like a hostage situation and somebody shooting at us. And so when we run these scenarios and you repeatedly see staff who've been trained in that manner attacking a student depicted as threatening suicide with a cocked pistol to their temple, finger on the trigger, with not an active shooter, but over and over they say they would attack the gunman. That's what we call a training scar. We've accidentally conditioned people. And that to us is what's most noticeable, because we are seeing a very deep correlation with the shootings we worked, where we have to get to see the video, and they're almost never the way they're depicted, in the media and at even professional conferences. But it carries over to sudden cardiac arrest. It carries over to following policies on visitor management or reporting of potential grooming behaviors or boundaries invasions. Toward reporting, I mean, principal, in one case I had a principal did not report a rape in his building. He was arrested, massive litigation. You would think in this day and age, he would immediately call police. Not only did he call the police, when his SRO checked at the end of the day, he said, nothing. He didn't believe the girl would be raped under a stairwell for 15 minutes while people walked up and down the stairs until they pulled a video the next day. So anything that you have in terms of life safety, you can test in the way that I'm describing. And it's good to test, find if there is a problem, save those test results, and then take corrective action. And I guarantee you, like you said, no matter how good your district is, no matter how much work, if you're an independent school, and a lot of our independent schools do really good work in this area too, there's always those opportunities to improve. And it'll give you the confidence, and your people the confidence, that the approaches you're using are viable.
Well, Mike, there's a million things that you guys do that I'm a huge fan of. But this gap analysis, so to speak, right? When we're looking at the school violence prevention program grant, we got to go do physical security assessments of our schools based on best practices, put those reports together so that we can get the funding from the feds for that. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, they don't fund this gap analysis as far as the response protocols component. Maybe they do fund that kind of stuff, but that is definitely a need across all K-12. And like I said, I was fortunate enough that I did it at my district, but I did a very small amount over the larger scheme of things because, as you know, I was one person for 30 schools. How can one person be effective at training 3, 4, 5,000 people in emergency management when our core mission at the end of the day is math and science, right? And reading.
Well, that's a good question. It's a real common challenge. And I'd say, again, the same kind of scenarios. And again, anybody can make these on a computer, the audio scenarios at least. And they're great for staff development. You can use them in web-based training programs. Most of the web training platforms allow you to build your own courses. And so you can build audio scenarios in. So you want to teach them how to do, like in your district of Rock Hill, one of the things that we found with our assessment there was they didn't have a reverse evacuation procedure. They're like, oh yeah, we need to do that. And we did videos with them, and you were able to use short videos to train thousands of employees. And it was just amazing. Our camera crew was talking about how, they're cutting like 2 minutes time getting from the playground back into the building. So scenarios are very good, especially the audio scenarios. One thing to mention, some of the grants do pay for those type of assessments, but a lot of those are the state grants. But again, if you can't, fund an outside company coming in or firm, and with us, we're now to the point, even though we've grown so much with 62 people, we've been declining about 75% of requests for the last 9 months. I just finished 2 assessments that were booked a year and a half ago. I've been waiting that long. And so, one of the things I tell people, we have, as a nonprofit, one of our goals is to push out free information. So we have a lot of information, training videos, and so forth on our website in the free resources section that I think can be helpful to those. But I would urge, school officials to really consider using a variety of scenarios. It's not pass-fail type thing. It's not, again, you want to be very careful not to traumatize people, but and like you're from South Carolina. South Carolina Department of Education, Indiana Department of Education, both of those states have licensed all of our scenarios, audio scenarios, and they're available to schools in those states. But anybody can make scenarios to do the kind of things I'm talking about. Just be careful about trauma. Be sure people know you're not testing them. You're testing how well they're trained. But when you teach people, well, here's what a reverse evacuation is, and then you play a scenario for a situation that would, like a tornado approaching the building, they get it. They'll retain a lot better, and you can do it in very short bites of time. Does that make sense, Kevin?
It's fantastic. Mike, where would we go to get more information on you and Safe Havens International and how they can maybe reach out to you for some help?
Sure. Our website is kind of long. It's www.safehavensinternational. That's Safe Havens, plural, one word, safehavensinternational.org. You could also Google, school safety Michael Dorn, it'll come up. But go to our resources section. We've got in various places on our website, something you have to hunt for. We've got about 50 free training videos. We have a number of free guides. A really good one is 20 Simple Strategies for Safer Schools, a free guide we developed for the Maine Department of Ed. So we've got a lot of resources on there. And the goal for our nonprofit is to push out that type of information to as many schools and public safety agencies as we can. So there's quite a bit on there, free ebook, different things like that.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, I'd be remiss if I didn't let the audience know. Most people know that I am a true security geek. I've been in school security since I was 15. My SRO was a huge impact on my life. And I would say that the person right behind them as far as hero status and I want to be like is Mike Dorn. So you're a true pilot, a professional. I love you to death, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thanks for your many decades of contributions to the field, and it's my pleasure. Anytime we can help you, You do great work out there. I'm just really glad to see it, man. You're doing great.
Appreciate you, Mike.